36. And we looked last time at how the people were called to give freely from what they had in order to construct the tabernacle and all the things that went along with it, the altars, the utensils, the lampstands, everything, and they contributed freely to that cause. In chapter 36, we see that they gave so much, it says that they had to be told to quit. Let no man or woman do anything more for the contribution for the sanctuaries. Verse 6. So the people were restrained from bringing, for the material they had was more than sufficient to do all the work and more. So they had to be stopped from giving in order to build the tabernacle. As we're going through this chapter 36, there's a couple key themes that I'd like us to focus on. The first is that God always provides his people what they need to do what he has asked. When he asked them to construct all these different things, you read about the way the Ark of the Covenant is supposed to be constructed, the way the lampstands are supposed to be constructed. It's fairly ornate stuff. There's supposed to be these two cherubim that come with these wings that meet over the seat of the Ark, and it's just incredible skill and craftsmanship that would be taken to make all these different things for the Ark. Well, what if you didn't have a gold worker? What if you didn't have somebody familiar with metallurgy and all the different things that would be necessary in order to make something like that? Well, God called two particular people by name. But we're going to have to read it because I can't remember it off the top of my head, or I can't say it correctly if I'm not reading it. Bezalel and Aholiab. He called these two guys by name, and he gave them the skills that they needed in order to construct these things for the tabernacle. When God called Israel, or told the Hebrew people, this is what you have to build in order for me to come and meet you in the tent of meeting. I'm going to meet you on the ark of the covenant on the top of this mercy seat between these two cherubim. Well, if those cherubim weren't there, God wouldn't be able to meet them there. So God gave them what they needed, all the way down to the people who had the abilities or the skills to put all these things together. Well, in our lives, I can't say necessarily that God has called any particular person by name or given them in this what seems to be a very miraculous or a gift that has been imparted to these two particular people. I can't say that happens today. Like, I can't say that God has called somebody by name and given them fantastic running abilities or fantastic artistic abilities or whatever the case may be. But I can say, without a doubt, that God has made each and every single individual person with their own particular talents and abilities. He has made you who you are. He has made you with the potential to become somebody who uses all the gifts that they have to serve God and further the gospel of Jesus Christ. I may not be able to build this fancy Ark of the Covenant, but I can use every gift that I do have to serve God. I can use all the time that I do have to serve God. And He has given me those things, and so I should use them for His glory. Another thing you may notice is that while those two guys kind of get the spotlight, there are a whole bunch of people working in the background. If you remember from verse 35, when you're reading through it, there are women who are working and putting this together. It just calls them women who are working and sewing these different things together. It calls them women whose hearts stirred them to use their skill, who spun the goat's hair in verse 26 of chapter 35. So there's a whole bunch of people working in the background to make this tabernacle come to fruition. And so Bezalel and Aholiab are not the only people working. They're the ones who are named specifically as having these great skills to construct all these different things, but they're not the only ones working. So we may find ourselves in a situation sometimes where there's somebody who has just an amazing skill to do something. We may find ourselves working with somebody who is just a phenomenal speaker, and they are incredibly skilled at preaching and going through the scriptures and detailing all the things that God wants us to do. We know that great speaking ability isn't enough by itself. There are all kinds of things that have to go on in the background to make that great speaking ability profitable. We have to get people to come and listen. We have to set up venues. We have to do all the different things that have to happen in order for people to come hear somebody proclaim the gospel. There's all sorts of things like this where there's always people working in the background, using what God has given them to make sure that the gospel is heard and received by as many people who are willing. Because the gospel is the thing that's important. not the people. In this particular story, the two guys who had the skill, they're not the key players here. They're not what's important. The important thing is the tabernacle. The important thing is the worship of God. And so as we're looking through our lives and we look at what we can do and what we can't do, focus on what you can do to serve the Lord. Don't focus on what gifts you don't have or what gifts you had that you wish were better. Focus on what you can do right now today to serve the Lord, and do that to the best of your ability, because that is what He has asked all throughout time from His people. Use the gifts I've given you to serve me in the best way you can. And that's our lesson for the day as we go through the Bible book by book and chapter by chapter in Exodus chapter 36.